Hello, and welcome to the best streaming gear and how to use it. I'm your host and moderator, Behnke from LiveX. LiveX is a full-service streaming and broadcast company in New York and Green Bay, Wisconsin. I'm really excited. End of Friday. Welcome, everybody. I know it's been a fun streaming media. If you joined us for live production in the cloud on Wednesday, we had a great time. I've been watching some of the panels. It's been great. I'm really excited for the people that we have on today, and we're going to kick it right off. I'd like to introduce Harjinder Sandhu, Director of Business Development at Evertz, who'll be presenting some new Evertz projects. So welcome, Harjinder.
Thank you. Okay, so let's get started. My name is Harjinder Sandhu, Director of Business Development here at Evertz. And this morning's session, we're going to look at Evertz XPS, the encoding platform recently launched by Evertz to address the streaming market. Most of you guys might be aware of Evertz in a sort of premium contribution encoding space. You're looking at 10 gig, 100 gig links where you have high quality content in JPEG XS, JPEG 2000. Evertz is very well known for. So in these spaces, however, some of you guys might be surprised to find out that Evertz is actually bringing all that expertise and into the streaming space. So addressing the challenges of the rising streaming market and the need of even the top tier broadcasters, but as well as the not so top tier content producers, content creators, to be able to unlock the potential of getting content from A to B in the highest quality, lowest latency possible. So that's where Evertz XPS platform fits in, and that's what we'll be talking about today. We will not dive too much into how to control it, because it's an encoder and it should be very straightforward. But we'll focus on where we can use these products and what are the problems that this solves. So let's look at the big picture first. Evertz is known to bring in the big picture, not just focus on one product, two products, but instead a solution. And what big picture that we see right now is an overall cloud production, remote production story. So end-to-end live cloud production, how are we solving that challenge? So you've got, content being created at different locations, whether that is home, you've got staff working from all over the place, and the content being delivered to all over the place. So how is Evertz end-to-end cloud production solve this problem, and where does XPS fits in? So let's start by, looking at where the content is being generated. That could be a stadium, that could be news, that could be an event happening anywhere in the world. And that's where you utilize, high quality compression from XPS solution to stream that content natively into the cloud. And that is where you use, you can also use that platforms in studios, where you have content being generated in somewhat of a traditional manner, or these studios could now be obviously at home studios as well. And all that content gets pushed into the cloud in whichever cloud services are running, and facilitating different players like engineers, operators, influencers, and that be it, to allow access to that content so that they can get that content ready to be published out to traditional means like Broadcast Center, or perhaps get it straight to the streaming services, or a hybrid of both. So that is where Evertz story of getting content from end to end comes into play. A lot of that now is happening through OTT as well. A lot of that is going to be happening through 5G more and more as we see the 5G space grow a lot. So we'll talk a little bit about that, and getting that content all the way into the consumer. So I'll explain a little bit of some of the different pieces that come together to get this whole story done. So you've got encoding, high-end contribution at the venue, whether it is stadium, whether it is at home studios. That is where you have to start preserving the video quality. If step one ruins the video quality, no matter the type of solutions deployed afterwards, you can't make that quality any better. We all know that. And that's what XPS hardware-based dedicated encoding decoding solutions help. So they are specifically designed organically here at Evertz by the same team of engineers who have developed some of the high-end encoding systems that the industry knows Evertz for to get that content. A lot of our software solution, our Dreamcatcher replay solution, our Bravo switching platform, a Studer acquisition for audio solutions, Ease Live for user graphics, dedicated user graphics, Shot Tracker for metadata insertion, to be able to cut the stories based, autonomously on the data being injected into the stream. And all those are made accessible to the operators via cloud using our Dreamcatcher View technology, and then getting that published out to the end. So, if you look at this summary again, you've got a lot of arenas that are now being retrofitted with 5G antennas as well. So XPS is now able to serve those categories as well. We'll talk a little bit about XPS and 5G space later in the presentation as well. So this gives you a big picture of the problems Evertz is solving for our large and small customers. That's the beauty about Bravo Studio's production ecosystem, is it can be tailored up or down to meet the needs of any size operation. So you can have a small, 2-camera cooking show done from a studio, or you can have a large production being done as well. So cloud production is the big push, and Evertz is able to solve the end-to-end picture. Now let's dive right into the topic of today, which is XPS, and that's in my jurisdiction. What is XPS doing, and what does it really bring to the table, where you have a whole slew of encoding platforms available in the market? So what is XPS? The number one thing it hopes to solve is for the encoding, decoding, streaming segment. And the term streaming is key here because that sort of stands for very cost effective, being able to stream to different protocols and utilizing, public internet. Number one challenge of the streaming space, not in the beginning of the pandemic, but now, is looking at that quality, bringing to the broadcast quality standards. In the beginning days, everybody was accepting anything, and then we're just happy to have content. But now our broadcasters, our content creators are looking at, utilizing the same means that were unlocked greatly by pandemic, which is using internet for your streaming, but delivering the high quality possible. So that's where Evertz really brings the experience that it has in creating these organic encoding, decoding products that deliver that highest quality video at the lowest latency possible. And then you bring in the density. You bring in all the different feature sets of, bringing in, quad 1080p signals, dual 4K UHD signals. You've got HDMI for AV applications, and you've got 2110 for your broadcast applications. So it covers all different, IO types. And then you look at different codecs. You've got H.264 for your legacy stuff. You've got HEVC for, the folks who are utilizing the latest codec. And on the roadmap of XPS, differentiating from what you have traditionally in the streaming space, you have JPEG XS on the roadmap as well. So your investments are future-proof, whether your remote kits built with these encoders show up at a venue where you only have public internet, or at a venue where you end up having a dedicated network. XPS is going to be able to fit that use case and leverage the bandwidth that you have available. And then protocols. We heard during our sort of research phase of this product that a lot of customers were sort of forced into picking a protocol or a group, whether they go with proprietary Zixi that delivers its own benefits, they go with open source RIST, or they go with somewhat open source of an SRT, or they need to switch the encoder between streaming to YouTube to contributing over SRT. XPS brings all these protocols to the platform without any additional cost, taking away that concern of what happens if I have my remote kit go from location A to B and has to interface with a different network. You have UDP for your direct dedicated contribution as well. And then you've got, in sports and such, you need a lot of audio processing. So you have 16 channels of audio per input. That means almost 64 channels of audio for the whole unit with quad inputs. So that takes care of, making sure that you don't have to allocate, okay, I can put this audio channel on this input, this audio channel on this input. You don't have to worry about that because each input supports the broadcast standards of 16 channels of audio. And then you give customers the different form factors to pick between. So the technology remains the same, but it's served with multiple different form factors. And that's what we'll look at in the next slides. But what are some of the problems it's solving for our customers, right? Number one, it's low cost and it's extremely low latency at the highest quality combination. That is the number one problem it solves, not the gimmicks, but the fundamental of having an affordable encoder that gives you the ultra low latency, lowest in the industry at the highest quality possible. Low bandwidth, so that's another problem, right? The challenge was to get that over public internet. So you know that you're going to be dealing with low bandwidth. You don't have 40 megs, 80 megs available traditionally for a contribution link. You're going to have 10 megs, 5 megs in some cases as well. And then you need to address the non-technical end user, right? These encoders will go to places where you're not going to have a staff that is highly trained to utilize these broadcast equipment. So you need to able to have quick setup. I did an unboxing video that we'll link in the chat here that shows you how you can take this encoder and get it up and running within a matter of minutes. That's a nice one to look at. It's on YouTube on Evertz channel, and we'll have it here in the chat as well. And then you have versatile form factors, because a lot of customers, their challenge was that, okay, for my data center, I need this form factor. For my remote kit, I need this form factor. And bringing that versatility, that Evertz factor onto a product, that's where you're able to get multiple different form factors out. And then on top of that is the ecosystem. Once you have, if you have few of these units, then it's easy to control them through local web page. But when you start to have these things deployed in large numbers, you need to have centralized control and management. You need to be able to have remote access to these things at will. They need to dial home and all those things. The challenges that come with having a large infrastructure that is remote, you need to have centralized control systems. So Magnum, integration with Zixi, all of these things solve that problem of being able to control these devices from a central location. So let's look at the form factors that we have now. XPS Edge is our starting form factor, the most popular standalone fanless enclosure. It's able to do quad 3Gs or dual ultra HD instead of just a traditional single UHD that you see in the market. So this allows you to do 2 UHD signals on a unit. That brings the cost very down, and it's able to give you bidirectional workflows on a same unit. So a lot of times our customers would tell us that they sent 3 encoders out, but they needed a return feed and they forgot to send a decoder out. Well, with XPS, using its software configuration, you can turn an encoder into a quad encoder, a quad decoder, or a dual encoder, dual decoder configuration. And now we're also introducing XPS 5 gig into the platform as well. So what does a 5G platform brings? 5G platform, brings all the advantages of an XPS encoding technology over 5G network. So this unlocks your connectivity potentials even more, where you do not have wired connections. You're able to utilize HDMI and 12 gig IO onto a remote 5G encoder and still get your 4K 60 10-bit encoding, again, on all the different protocols that are available in the market. So this is, super easy to use, ultra flexible, very lightweight encoder that can be sent out in the field and is able to connect and dial home over 5G network. So I have one here in my hand I'd like to show you guys. It has, it's a very small, sturdy enclosure. It has the antennas for 5G connectivity. It has a SIM port in the back and has the IO ports in the front. You've got HDMI connections for, your traditional AV ports. And then you've got the SFP port in which you can have 12 gig SFP. And then you have your control port. And this encoder can not only function with 5G, but wired connection as well. So you can use this for redundancy as well. You can have 5G as your main link and wired backup or vice versa. And then you have your 12-volt power supply. We have additional battery packs that can go along with this as well. So you can have them in a really mobile scenario. So that's 5G for you guys. The next up is the Scorpion platform. The Scorpion platform brings to table even more flexibility to an encoder. So typically you have an encoder and it encodes, and that's what XPS 5G is. But in a lot of scenarios, customers will end up with different I/O needs. They might need up-down cross conversion. They might need frame conversion. They might need analog audio output or input. Scorpion platform utilizes XPS encoding and unlocks more of the features as well. So let's take a look at that. Let's look at the XPS Mio. If you install this XPS Mio module, the encoding module in a Scorpion 2 chassis, you're able to get dual 3G 1 UHD. Again, ultra small form factor for throwdown applications, very, very cost effective. And then you put that same module in a Scorpion 6, now you're able to get a lot more density with it. You've got 6 3G or 3 Ultra HD signals with it. You use that module in a Scorpion 18 and you have very high density applications. You have 2110 inputs and outputs. You have HDMI inputs and outputs. You can bring in, like I said, up-down cross-conversion functionalities to it, frame synchronization, and so much more. And the last form factor is the blade form factor, which we call it 5782, because it's housed in the 570 chassis. And this is for ultra high density applications, rack room applications, where you are able to do 2110 from your IP switch fabrics straight onto the cloud environments. So it brings in this one slot module that has very high density of encoding, and you have a full chassis loaded with these things. You're able to do over 60 encodes and decodes in one chassis. So the platforms, the different form factors really help solve the different challenges of our broadcasters and our streamers out there. So there is a platform, there is a form factor to fit every need in every cost segment. Let's look at some of the applications that we use these for. Obviously, 4K field contribution is very cost effective through XPS. Remote production is now facilitated with streaming. Previously you would have dedicated 10 gig, 100 gig links from these arenas. And now a lot of even remote trucks are being, sort of retrofitted so that they just do the encoding and connect it to the remote production central site. A return feed monitoring for our operators at home. So if your operators are working remotely, you're able to get a return feed out to them utilizing public internet. Remote collaboration and cloud production. So all these applications are being unlocked with this. So let's look at some of the advantages in a summary. You've got the ultra low latency at the highest quality. You've got software configurable encoder and decoders or bidirectional workflows. So you are not saying I have 10 encoders and 10 decoders. You're saying you have 20 paths and you can use them in any way you like. And you have compact, versatile form factors. And I think the most important advantage of an Evertz solution is you're getting all those benefits of premium encoding lines at a very cost-effective range. Next up, I'll talk a little bit about the Reflector product. This is our on-prem or cloud gateway. So it's sort of the, when you have content going up into the cloud, what happens then? You can utilize Reflector for all your cloud distribution needs. You have different inputs and outputs that come into this platform. You can add audio, video processing to it. You can do transcoding. You can do protocol conversion, monitoring of content. So here's a look at, sort of a quick snapshot of what Reflector is able to do. Essentially, the software platform can take in any protocol and is able to add microservices to perform any function on that stream that is coming in, whether that is transcoding from NDI to HEVC, for example, or a simple protocol conversion of SRT in and RIST out, or doing audio video processing, PID delay, PID remapping. Pretty much anything you need to do a transport stream, a Reflector is able to do that and then get it out in any protocol you want. So it could be used as simple as a SRT gateway to a full-on, transcoder up in the cloud. Let's look at one case study here quickly. When we looked at this application, you have Evertz switch fabrics in the broadcast center that are feeding SDI to a existing NDI gateway for a cloud, application. So in this, they're able to send NDI content up and bring NDI content back down and able to do a test production of few feeds. Now, there are problems with that. Number one problem is NDI uplink was consuming too much bandwidth. For a couple of links, it's not a problem. But when you have large amount of bandwidth, then you have a large number of signals, you have too much bandwidth. At the time, NDI meant no packet recovery as well. No 2110 support as well. So you needed conversion. And this solution was simply not scalable. So how did Evertz address this issue? So essentially, in this, what we have is an XPS reflector-based solution to give them, up to 100 streams that they can send up in the cloud. So our switch fabrics feed XPS platform, which then takes that signal and converts, instead of NDI, into an HEVC signal that is sent to Reflector in the cloud. And in the cloud, Reflector feeds NDI to the existing workflow. So essentially, we're still handing off NDI at the end, but the transport method is now utilizing high efficiency codec and protection of packets, and then that content travels back down to ground. So what essentially the advantages this solution has? Now you have low bandwidth on ramp. So instead of consuming 150 megabits per second per stream, you're now consuming 40 megs. You have ultra low latency at the highest VQ. So the end-to-end round trip time is less than 1 second, including all the conversions and transcoding and switching. That's mind-blowing stuff. Future-proof, so you've got 2110 support in this as well, instead of using the gateways for the entire project. And then this solution is highly scalable. So with that, I wanted to summarize my XPS presentation. Some of the use cases that we have delivered. Esports is a big market for us. We are doing a lot of work with likes of EA Sports, with deploying hundreds of kits out in the field. We're working with a lot of media broadcasters to get the content from A to B over public internet, which was traditionally done over satellite links. We're working with a lot of small-time content creators to publish their content out to YouTube. Previously, Evertz products would be considered sort of out of budget for these low cost applications, but XPS unlocks that. So you're able to access decades of codec experience, organic engineering. With XPS, you're able to serve those applications as well. So a lot of our customers are giving us great feedback. Feedback from the field comparing to the leading encoding decoding manufacturers is that we're twice as better in latency. That's a big statement, and we intend to stick with that with field tests, with live tests. These units are readily available for demos, so you're able to reach out to myself, anybody at Evertz sales staff on the website, and able to request a demo, and we can get a unit out to you guys quickly. With that, I wanted to throw it back to our moderators here for any questions, Corey, if we have any. Thank you.
Harjinder, this is great. I have a couple things for myself. I literally, during your presentation, I was like, wait, is the encoder a decoder as well? That's really awesome. That's really
Right.
cool that you guys have the decoder inside of the encoder. I myself has had this problem. I'm not going to mention the products, but having to buy an encoder and a
Right.
decoder and then having to choose, having to manage that is kind of
Right.
so that's really cool. Some questions from the Q&A. One was low latency. I do want to answer this. So low latency
Right.
was mentioned, but numerically, what exactly is low latency in this case, and where can these specs be found? I
Right.
do want to just answer. In my opinion, low latency for this kind of product is sub 1 second, pretty much under 500 milliseconds, 200 to 500 milliseconds. Would you agree?
I would call that extremely high latency, Corey, in my opinion, because we're 100 milliseconds. See, the thing is, folks, the reason I don't throw the numbers at the screens because they're subjective. We need to understand the exact playing field. We know in compression the three pillars of quality, latency, and bandwidth. You manipulate one, the other one is affected. You give something more bandwidth, all of a sudden it's lower latency. So in a apples to apple comparison, that's why I use the word, with the leading encoding manufacturer out there in streaming, you can put the XPS next to it in the same parameters, 15 megs, HEVC, 1080p, and same content. You'll
SRT.
have, yes, you can have 2 times better latency than that, right? So, some folks will say, well, I measured 80 milliseconds in a certain scenario. What was it SRT enabled on that or RIST enabled on that? Oh, no, see, it's so.
Yep.
Instead of, and I will say that to everybody out there from a customer level, is do not believe any of these numbers unless you do your own test. And if the encoder manufacturer is not able to stand the test, then all those numbers are useless. So, and these things are readily available for demos. So you should be able to do these tests and determine very quickly.
Great. And then I had another question. Is the PDF of this presentation available to share with purchasing managers and clients so they can read it on their own time?
Yes, we can make a PDF available, maybe share some of the information or have to withhold for privacy reasons or whatnot. But sure, yes, majority of the information can be available. XPS product information and different form factors and licenses and all that is available on our website as well.
There is a question about cost. Harjinder answered, please contact sales@evertz.com and they can better answer your inquiries on cost. So
yeah, and I'll give you just a generic understanding as well so that folks know the space of this, right? And I've done that is, yes, the exact cost depends on the license or the unit and all that stuff. But I would like to think for folks to know that it's in thousands per channel, not tens of thousands per channel, right? So then you know that the space you're dealing with, like a JPEG XS link might be, in $10,000 link, but this product really brings that into hundreds or thousands per link, not tens of thousands.
Got it. Great. Well, thank you very much. That's all the questions that we have from the group. I
Brilliant.
appreciate Evertz's time. Really exciting product, XPS.
Yep.
And thank you, Harjinder.
Thank you very much, guys. Have a good rest of the show, and we'll hopefully see each other in person sometime soon.
NAB maybe. NAB, right?
Go. Thank you.